I took one last fling too far before the wedding. I thought he'd never find out, but it was 2 weeks before the wedding when he called me. His voice was calm, too calm, like someone standing on the edge of something terrible and already accepting the fall. "Where are you?" he asked. I froze. The question sounded simple, but there was a pause beneath it, the kind that hides knowledge. "I'm at the spa," I lied. My voice came out steady, but I could hear my own heartbeat through it. The room was dark. My phone screen lit half of his face, the one I wasn't supposed to see again. He didn't move. He was still beside me, propped up against the headboard, tracing a lazy finger along the sheet. It was absurd how soft that touch felt even now, like sin disguised as warmth. The man in my bed wasn't my fiancé. He was someone I was supposed to forget years ago. Though what if I never closed? And now, as my fiancé's voice lingered through the phone, every breath I took felt like proof. He said, "You sound tired." I whispered, "Long day." He didn't reply right away. Just silence, stretched, deliberate. Then, finally, he said, "Okay, get some rest." When the line went dead, I kept staring at the screen. The call lasted 27 seconds, long enough for a lifetime to end quietly. Beside me, the other man murmured, "He doesn't know." But his tone wasn't comforting, it was arrogant. And something in me, something buried deep, snapped. Because in that second, I realized it wasn't love, it was recklessness disguised as desire. And I'd just tied it to the only man who ever trusted me. After that night, everything felt off balance. My fiancé, Evan, started watching me differently. Not suspicion, not anger, just observation. He was too calm, too composed, the way someone looks at a chessboard when they already know the next move. Every time he smiled, I felt smaller. At breakfast, he poured my coffee, said, "Morning," kissed my cheek. I tried to mirror normalcy, but his silence had a shape, a knowing one. He began asking small questions. What time did the spa close that night? Who were you with before you went home? I lied, fluently, automatically, but the guilt tasted metallic in my mouth. I started imagining what he knew, whether someone saw us, whether I'd left something behind, a text, a receipt, a trace of perfume on a shirt that wasn't his. The man from that night, Nathan, started messaging me again. "You okay? He's not suspecting anything, right?" I told him to stop. He didn't. Sometimes I'd catch myself looking at his messages late at night, the glow of the phone reflecting the worst parts of me, the parts I'd buried under a white dress and perfect vows. Evan slept beside me, steady breathing, hand loosely resting near mine. He always slept close before. Now he left space. And that space, that quiet, deliberate space, was louder than any confrontation. I noticed changes. He started coming home earlier, watching me cook, watching me clean, watching me breathe. Once I left my phone on the counter. When I came back, it was exactly where I left it, but the lock screen had changed. A background photo of us at the beach had been replaced with a blank one. A small thing, a quiet warning. He didn't say a word. At night, I felt his presence awake beside me, still and cold. Sometimes I thought I heard his phone vibrate at odd hours, short buzzes that stopped too quickly. I never asked. He wasn't a man who yelled. He was a man who thought. And I knew deep down he was already thinking. One afternoon, I found an unfamiliar envelope on his desk. It wasn't sealed, just folded neatly. Inside, a single business card, Private Investigations and Surveillance. My fingers trembled. I put it back exactly as I found it. That night, I smiled more than usual. I kissed him longer. I told him I loved him. He didn't say it back. The air between us thickened. No accusations, no proof, just the silent knowledge of betrayal waiting to bloom. Days passed like that. Every conversation felt like a test. Every touch felt observed. And then one evening, he came home early, holding his phone, face unreadable. He said, "We need to talk." I tried to smile. About what? He looked at me for a long moment, then said, quietly, "About the spa." The way he said it, calm, detached, made my knees almost buckle. But before I could speak, he just nodded once. "Dinner's ready," he said, and walked away. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't breathe. The silence had turned into a sentence. I just didn't know when he planned to deliver it. It happened on a Sunday morning, the day before our final wedding rehearsal. He handed me a small envelope. No words, no explanation. Inside, photos. Me, Nathan, hotel parking lot, hallway, door. Every step of that night, framed like evidence. The air left my body. My hands went cold. My heart didn't race. It just stopped moving for a second. He watched me, no expression. Then he asked, "Was it worth it?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because what could I say? That it was a mistake? That I didn't mean it? Lies sound uglier when spoken to someone who already knows. He took the photos back gently, placed them on the counter. "I wanted to believe you," he said softly, "but the truth doesn't care what I want." His voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was tired. Then he turned and walked toward the window, staring out into the gray morning light. I felt something collapse inside me. Not guilt, not fear, just the realization that the person I loved most had already buried me emotionally. Finally, I whispered, "Evan, please." He didn't turn around. He just said, "You should cancel the venue." The room went quiet. I could hear the sound of my own breath breaking. That's how he ended it. No shouting, no scene, just a clean, surgical cut, the kind that leaves no visible scar but bleeds forever underneath. 3 weeks later, I heard Nathan's name again. He called me, panicked. His voice cracked over the line. "Your fiancé, he sent them to my wife." My throat tightened. Sent what? The pictures, the messages, everything. I didn't respond. I couldn't. He was rambling now, desperate. "She left me, Emily. She took the kids. How could he?" But I wasn't listening anymore. I was looking out the window, at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. Calm, composed, hollow. I whispered, "He warned me." Because he had. Not in words, but in the way he'd looked at me that last morning. Detached, collected, waiting. He hadn't destroyed me in anger. He'd waited until truth could destroy everything connected to me instead. Nathan kept shouting through the phone, but I just hung up. Then I poured a glass of water and sat down, quietly. The coldness spreading through me wasn't shock. It was symmetry. Evan had given me what I deserved, and done it beautifully. No confrontation, no revenge speech. Just precision. Later that week, a mutual friend told me Evan had moved cities, closed his accounts, changed his number. He vanished, the same way trust had vanished the night I lied. And the wedding that never happened became gossip. People speculated, some pitied, some judged. None of it mattered, because Evan never once spoke publicly. He didn't need to. He left me to live with the echo, a punishment far worse than rage. It's been months now. The invitations we never sent are still in a box at the back of my closet. I can't bring myself to throw them away. It feels like the leading evidence of a version of me that almost existed, before I burned it all down. Sometimes I replay that night in my head, the rain, the phone, the stillness in his voice. I used to think the silence meant doubt. Now I know it was certainty. He knew. And he gave me time to destroy myself. There's something terrifying about being loved by someone intelligent. They don't explode. They calculate. They build the truth around you until you have no room left to breathe. I see his face sometimes, in reflections, in dreams, in crowds that resemble his posture. I wonder if he's happy. Then I remember he doesn't care. and neither do I. Not anymore. Because somewhere between guilt and punishment, I learned something cruelly honest. Love doesn't die when you betray it. It mutates. It becomes memory. And memory doesn't forgive. I still wear the engagement ring sometimes, not as a promise, as a reminder of the night I mistook recklessness for freedom and lost the only person who ever truly saw me. The irony is, I finally understand him now, the stillness, the silence, the calm before every decision. He didn't scream because he didn't have to. He just let me hear the sound of my own ruin, and that was enough. It's been months now. The invitations we never sent are still in a box at the back of my closet. I can't bring myself to throw them away. It feels like deleting evidence of a version of me that almost existed, before I burned it all down. Sometimes I replay that night in my head. The rain, the phone, the stillness in his voice. I used to think the silence meant doubt. Now I know it was certainty. He knew, and he gave me time to destroy myself. There's something terrifying about being loved by someone intelligent. They don't explode, they calculate. They build the truth around you until you have no room left to breathe. I see his face sometimes, in reflections, in dreams, in crowds that resemble his posture. I wonder if he's happy. Then I remember he doesn't care, and neither do I. Not anymore. Because somewhere between guilt and punishment, I learned something cruelly honest. Love doesn't die when you betray it. It mutates. It becomes memory. And memory doesn't forgive. I still wear the engagement ring sometimes, not as a promise, as a reminder of the night I mistook recklessness for freedom and lost the only person who ever truly saw me. The irony is, I finally understand him now. The stillness, the silence, the calm before every decision. He didn't scream because he didn't have to. He just let me hear the sound of my own ruin. And that was enough.
How could you do this?